All right, it is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. Central Time. It means office hours here on the Academy. Welcome, everyone. This is where you can get a quick update from the last 7 days in our little industry, and of course, where you can ask questions on pretty much any topic related to Windows, PowerShell, MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, you name it. Hey there, Andrew. How are things?
Oh, not too bad. Busy week as always, but hey, that's all right. Gets us to the weekend faster. How about you?
Likewise.
Yeah, excellent.
So, what's new?
Well, I got a couple of things that I came across for this week. If you don't mind sharing my screen, I would be happy to show them.
I'll see what I can do.
All right.
Almost. Oh, perfect.
There we go. That is perfect. So the first thing that I had on my list for today was this article that I came across from Alexander Koehler. It's a nice short little script on finding orphaned GPOs through PowerShell before planning your migration to Intune. Absolutely thought this was worthwhile to share because this is something I have news for you, Johan. Not everybody has moved all the way to Intune or Entra native joined at this point. I know that might be a little shocking.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we still have we still have so many people. There are so many people that are still on this journey. So one of the things that Johan and I talk about, not just Johan and I, you'll hear several, most of the community talk about when you're moving from ConfigMgr and Active Directory over to Intune. So you no longer have group policies. It's a fantastic time to clean up your group policies using tools like Alexander put together here, as well as starting fresh with new configuration profiles in Intune. Don't bring all of that 20 years worth of CRUD over from Active Directory just directly over to Intune. So
24, mind you.
Thank you for the correction. Absolutely, 24. Those few extra years, honestly, likely added a couple extra, a little bit more CRUD to a lot of the environments that we're used to playing around in. Even our own, I'm sure. That said, any of these tools I think are very useful to have in the toolbox. So thank you, Alexander, for putting this together. Another notification that I came across this afternoon, actually. Hopefully this is not news to anyone at this point, as this has been happening for quite a while. As many of you probably know, if you did use the Microsoft Store for Business or Store for Education, that particular service has been going through the deprecation process for some time now. And the latest that I saw on that was right here. Actually, let me use my Zoom it. Store for Business and Store for Education portals will retire on August 15th, 2024. So if for some reason you are still using these portals, note that they will be going away in just a couple of weeks.
Are you taking any bets whether it will be postponed one more time, that deadline, or if it's actually going to stick this time?
I don't know. They have postponed it for a while. I don't know that I'm up for taking that bet this time. Not as cut and dry as we're going to block SMTP access to Exchange or some one of those types of announcements. I think. I think it'll retire this time, but we'll see. And of course, as I say, I don't know that I'll take that bet. I immediately follow up with taking that bet. Oh, Johan, I don't know what you're going to do with me some days.
I'll figure something out.
So last but not least, the one thing that I wanted to go over was I published a blog post yesterday on our the deployment research blog. A little bit around how we can perform some ad hoc actions in terms of reading our lapse password or BitLocker recovery keys, rotating those passwords and recovery keys as needed, and also reporting on when they have been retrieved or rotated through PowerShell. Now, this post focused specifically on Intune and Entra, and also on the sort of ad hoc actions. So, for example, if I just want to retrieve a password via graph, I can do that with this simple command here. Same with rotating those lapsed passwords and with retrieving and rotating the BitLocker recovery keys. So that was sort of my focus for this post, was those ad hoc actions. I do have at the bottom of the post a couple of additional resources that are fantastic. This is a small subset of the BitLocker and Lapse resources that have come out across the web over the last couple of weeks. But Steve Weiner, Ugur Cook, and Petri have some great tools, scripts, and videos here on how you can do some of these things at a greater scale. But I hope this post will help you out. Again, just another tool in the toolbox for you, as it were. But I definitely wanted to hopefully take a few moments here to get some free therapy on figuring out the audit logs specifically for BitLocker recovery keys. And I detailed this a little bit in the post, so I won't dive into it completely. But of all the things I wrote and tested for this post, the gathering the BitLocker, the audit logs for BitLocker recovery key retrieval was not my idea of fun, but I got it to work. What I mean by that is often when you are interacting with a REST API, in this case specifically Graph, you have a number of fields that are available to you that have information in them. So, for example, I would expect that if you are going to gather the audit log for a BitLocker recovery key retrieval, there's going to be some basic information in there. The person or service or managed identity or service principal that retrieved the key is likely going to be in there. The time of the action, the name of the action, the type, category of the action. And oftentimes, if it is a device or a user or a group or whatever the specific resource may be, that target resource will be in there. So oftentimes that is a device ID, an object ID, a user principal name, a group name, something along those lines. When it comes to BitLocker recovery key retrieval, that, at least today, is not the case. The information is actually stored in a field called additional info, and it is stored in a long string that here's the example for it. Successfully retrieved BitLocker recovery key associated with key ID, and then there is a key ID for the specific BitLocker recovery key, and then backed up from the device, and you have an Azure AD device ID that shows up there as well. Well, there is a little bit of regular expression work that needs to be done here to pull out that second GUID, that Azure AD device ID. So with a little help, I was able to get there, but I just needed a vent for a minute.
That's okay. Regular expressions will do that to you. Yes. Poof.
Absolutely. They'll either drive you to drink or drive you to therapy. Oh, no.
Both. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you that need to do this through PowerShell or would like to do this through PowerShell, I would love to hear if you use this, that you either were successful with it or there needs to be some work here. I just wanted to throw these things out there for a little bit of help, because I know that we've all been talking about Lapse and BitLocker now for 2 weeks straight. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I've been rambling on for a little bit. That was what I had on my list for today, Johan.
All right, sounds good. I have some good news.
Excellent.
About 3 weeks ago, we were asked a question regarding an Unattend.xml file for Autopilot that we can leverage on just any given USB media that will just take the machine up to the out-of-box experience right away. And I said, yeah, of course, I will do that. And then CrowdStrike happened, and I absolutely did not do that. But now I've done it.
Excellent. That is good
So
news.
let me get rid of some stuff, and I will share my screen. When I find it, I will share it. How about that?
That sounds good, like a plan. And that looks
All
like
right.
your screen.
Yeah. So this is it. Just the basic unattended file. Now, I could argue and say that a better option is to create an MDT offline media. And just to show how that was different, I spent some time this weekend and recording a video on how to do that, because it will basically take you about an hour to set it up from nothing to finish. And then you have a media that you can use for just ad hoc deployments, USB stick, whatever, install Windows, install drivers, install applications. And since it's a sequence, it's so easy to put in some steps to do whatever you want to do. But if all you want to do is an automated unattend file that will bring up the machines to Autopilot, this is it. It will do exactly that, no more, no less. So here we are, finally fulfilling my homework.
Excellent work.
Thank you, sir. All right. So in addition to those two things, I'm just going to snatch that link while I remember it. I'm not going to play the video, promise. But we do keep an eye on our links here on the Academy, and we share them under our live stream. So I want to snatch that link. Now, another one that I was very excited about and news was an update to Winget, or platform update about Winget. In version 1.8, you have the ability to download store apps directly from the store, including all the dependencies, and not just for the architecture you happen to be on, but every single architecture, ARM and ARM64 and 32-bit and whatnot. So I was like super excited, like, oh, great. Except it doesn't bloody work. But other than that, it was a great thing. But we've been chatting back and forth in the community, and Microsoft has been chiming in a few times back and forth, and they even asked to, all right, try a non-elevated command prompt. So I tried a non-elevated command prompt. Try forcing interactive login. Yes, I did, and it prompted me twice, one in the beginning and one in the end. Still didn't get a license. So, well, work in progress. But the announcement is there, and I'm grateful for being a tester of this pre-alpha release. So anyway.
Absolutely. We'll have to keep an eye out on that one. It seems like quite a bit of excitement generated around that announcement.
Oh yeah, I mean the story is great. I mean the idea is fantastic, but implementation, not so much.
Room for improvement.
Opportunity for growth.
Yes.
Corporate standard here. Yeah. But I set up a room for improvement. It's a good one. It is. Yeah. What else? I think that was pretty much it from the news stand. No, one more thing. There's always one more thing. We just got confirmation today. We haven't published it yet, but in August, we'll be joined by Rod Trent on our Academy to give us a rundown on what Copilot for Security is all about. So looking forward to that one, and we will probably chat more about it next Wednesday when stuff is published and available on the site. So
excellent.
Getting there.
I just remembered one more thing as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We have talked a little bit about Cloud PKI over the last several months, and one of the opportunities for growth with Cloud PKI was the fact that you could not delete the root CA, and that was rolled out just this week, I
First.
believe.
Oh yeah, the deletion rolled out this week. Yeah, you're right. I saw that.
Yes,
Was it Mr. Hicks that mentioned that, or was it someone else?
I've seen quite a few now at this point. I've seen a few folks from Microsoft mention it. Richard absolutely mentioned it. Yeah, quite a few. And I know that was something that people had really been looking forward to. That was missing in the platform.
All right. Well, maybe not a news item per se, a finding. Will that qualify?
Absolutely.
All right. So we are running an upgrade class this week, and we've been playing around with all sorts of customizations, and I stumbled across this little feature that if you have a setup ConfigMgr file to drive customizations for example, Intune, and you fat finger the name of a script, I did that. Then you get this error on the screen.
Uh-huh.
And I was troubleshooting my command lines for a good while.
Just
Until I realized it was the script name that was wrong.
whoops.
They didn't say exactly that.
No, it's a little little ambiguous there.
Yeah, would have better been a note saying, "You idiot, you typed your script name wrong." All right, sorry.
Yeah, file not found. Something.
Yeah, would
Yeah.
be helpful. And then I just sent a question out to Twitter just like an hour or two ago. I was hoping for something to truly crash and upgrade every single time so it would roll back. And I was quite successful with the VeraCrypt driver for a while, but I couldn't get to crash every single time, and that was annoying. So I just curious if anyone out there happen to know someone who can put together or know what a driver that, if you reflect it, would crash the upgrade and cause a rollback. If anyone happens to know, let me know.
All right.
Maybe we can contract CrowdStrike. I don't know. They have been.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, this is funny. You might be one of the only people, Johan, that I would expect to ask the community for a driver that will crash something every single time.
Want to have reliable crashes.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. All right, fine. What questions do we have?
All right, we do have a couple that have come in while we've been talking. So Matthew over on LinkedIn has a question about ConfigMgr licensing. I'm trying to get my company to move to ConfigMgr. They're currently using MDT right now, and they see the software in the volume licensing site, but their understanding is that the license is not for the server, but for the workstations.
Well, that depends. You pay for the endpoint that you manage, and that endpoint can be a server if you're using ConfigMgr to manage servers. But no, you don't pay for the actual server that you run the server on, but you pay for the endpoints that you manage, no matter whether they are workstations or servers. And the licensing there are a little bit different. Servers are more expensive than the clients. Clients are interesting because for most license queues today, that includes Intune, except one, I believe, config manager is included for those clients. So let's let's see what would be a good. Was it the business suite? So basically, you get config manager in these, but there was something around. See if I can find it. Maybe it was on the config manager page. Here, that one I've been at before, obviously. Yeah, so config manager is included in the following plans here, but it is not included in the business premium plan. So shorthand version, if you have any of those, you have config manager for those clients that are or part of this. So I will share this one in the chat here, or sorry, in the when we post the links.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We've got another question over here from Drake on YouTube. I had a question about an issue I'm having with Autopilot, where I have apps, scripts, and etc. applied. I was getting Device ESP stuck at identifying apps. Then went as far as removing all assignments to narrow down what was locking it up, because I saw PowerShell scripts can cause that and still have issues. Any thoughts? These are Entra only devices.
No, I mean, we've been running quite a few Win32 apps that has a PowerShell wrapper that does something and haven't caused any grief during Autopilot. The only thing I can think of is that Intune by default will call the 32-bit PowerShell, which sometimes breaks installers. So it's up to the PowerShell script really what it does. That's the only thing I can think of, just off the top of my head. And of course, reducing the number of apps that are being deployed.
Yep, agreed. All right. We've got another question here regarding Intune. So in Intune, I'm able to set the PC background, but I'd like to be able to leave it open so that users can change the background if they want to. With the Intune policy, it's enforced. Is it possible without using an app and PowerShell?
Now, as Intune doesn't really have group policy preferences, unfortunately.
Yep.
The only equivalent would be the remediations, and that will take you back to PowerShell. I don't know of any other way.
No, I don't either. Something even to keep in mind, I know when you do change it through that method, if you change the icons in the Windows Web directory, even when you do an upgrade from there on out, they'll get replaced. So that's something that you have to plan for as well. But I agree, Johan, in app or PowerShell. And that app is likely to be PowerShell.
Yeah, so remediation or app that you push out. Yeah.
Yep.
So Chief Master Mike joined earlier. I wonder if that is Mr. Terrell that just changed his signature here. But, it is. Hello, Mike. I hope you're enjoying OSD Day. The tour goes on this week. I think they're doing it in 2 or 3 different cities. Could have
Excellent
time, but should be fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a great group presenting in Twin Cities this today. fantastic. Excited to hear how that went. Although you have a couple of close colleagues that were attending today. Have you heard from them how it went? Looked pretty well attended.
I have not, but I've also been busy presenting, so I haven't done it.
That's true. You have been doing a training all day, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
And I'm good at multitasking, but I'm not that good.
One eye on presenting and one eye on watching another presentation. Looks like we actually just got a comment in here from Alexander on YouTube. Great day was had up at Twin Cities Systems Management User Group. That's fantastic to hear.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear.
All right. So we got another couple of other questions that have come in. Amir is asking, we need to implement a script that runs during the Autopilot device setup phase to dynamically rename the device based on the logged in user's name. This should occur before applications get installed and before the account setup phase when the current logged in user is still default user 01. Do you know how we can retrieve this user information from either the local machine or through Graph API calls at this early stage of the Autopilot process?
If there is an assignment done on the device object in Intune, yes, you can read it through Graph. So you can have a script in the specialized pass, because that one runs before out-of-box experience. That one can look up the value and give the device the name it's supposed to have. The only way I've done it before is to do the entire registration in the specialized pass. So collect whatever information I need early on, even prompting for Intune group and username and stuff like that, and then leverage that as part of a sequence, do the registration, tell the client to hold until it's done, and then just allow the machine to continue. And then it would have the right name before Autopilot is, autopiloting its stuff. So that's something I can think of top of my head.
So Amir just had a follow-up comment here, no user assignment in this case.
Well, then you can ask for it. You can prompt for the username. Because if it's not staged anywhere and nobody's yet logged in, so you can't really do it there either, you can always rename the device after the fact. That is doable. If you don't mind another reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they have the logged in user and they can look up the name, and even the user themselves can rename a device from the company portal even, but you can do it through scripts. But that will trigger a reboot. So it's more elegant, I think, to do it beforehand. Still reboot the device, but it will have the right name from the beginning.
Right. All right. I have a question here from Sarah over on YouTube. Is Morris Daly's Modern BIOS management heavily used in the community? If not, is there a better or recommended solution?
Well, outside the vendor tools, I like to say this is the most commonly used one. Mm-hmm. What I like about that utility is that it's cross-vendor. It works for HP, Dell, Lenovo, and Microsoft. So I highly recommend it.
Great. Very easy to use, very easy to implement, at least in the context of managing drivers.
Usually BIOS that gives people the biggest headache, but this solution here is great. The documentation needs some updating because it's still referenced to the good old ConfigMgr web service. It no longer uses that. It's using the admin service, but still, this is a great tool.
Absolutely. All right. Looks like Matt's joining us today. So he's joining us over on YouTube and asked a question. I know I've mentioned it here many times, but why is the tenant name sometimes now showing when you run dsreg command /status?
Like seeing inconsistencies in showing the information, or always showing the information? Didn't quite follow. Let me go to one of my clients here. That this is, by the way, what it looks like when you don't get a license. We want- but if I close this little friend here, this is Amy's machine. I'll tell her how to use it.
I'm going to connect to one of mine as well.
So the question was regarding the tenant name.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen it not being there. Then I'm very old, so memory could be slipping also, but don't remember not seeing it.
Yeah, same in my experience. Just checking a couple right now, and it looks to be there on all of mine.
I mean, in general, for any type of enrollment in Intune, if you go either to Access Worker School and you see an info button like this one here, it's enrolled. If the event log is somewhat happy, it's going to take a month to expand this node here. Microsoft Windows. So these guys here, in general, if they are happy, then you also have a successful enrollment. I hope that answered the question somewhat.
All right. Matt had another question as well. How can hybrid devices appear in Intune when you see them in Entra, but not in Intune?
I mean, if you see a device in Entra, it just means that it's synced up from your local Active Directory. If you don't see it in Intune, it means it's not enrolled in Intune. If you go to Entra, it will tell you if the device is managed by something or not. If I head over here, go to my Entra Microsoft.com, and head over to devices, it will tell me whether they have an MDM provider or not to them. So just because it shows up in Entra, it's not a guarantee that it will be a managed object in Intune. It's a separate registrations or objects.
Do you actually have any in that list as well that show ConfigMgr, just to see what it looks like to
Maybe.
If not, I think I do.
Yes, I do.
Oh, there we go.
These are my tenant attached devices. And you can see that the user is an on-prem Johan user, a user that's been skipped. Don't know if I have any of different sorts. Well, I have a few one that are in Entra, but they are not managed.
There you go. So some good examples there of what they could look like. Probably the most common ones.
Yeah.
All right. I see Matt had a question about M365 DSC, but yeah, Matt, if you posted a link in there, those comments won't come through on YouTube. So I
I
don't
put
see
it
any.
away.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see any messages or questions about the M365 DSC. But I am familiar with it, at least, if you like to ask the question without the link.
Are you saying I should switch over to your screen?
I think that would be all right.
All right, then. I'm doing it. There we
So
are.
here, thank you, sir. So here's the website for the Microsoft 365 DSC solution. I have not used it much myself. I'm just, like I've said, familiar with it. But this is a solution that sort of helps you manage a lot of the Microsoft 365 services as code, essentially. So a little bit more of a DevOps type of way to manage M365 services. I'm not sure if it has in here which services you can automate.
I believe that was the link that. Yeah, that's the link that Matt sent. He pinged me on Twitter with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Looks like Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Intune, Entra, Teams, security and compliance. So quite a few things.
Yeah, I have not worked with this at all, so I wouldn't know.
No, but if you're using, if your organization sort of follows some of the DevOps methodologies, uses PowerShell DSC, basically, I saw one of Matt's questions was, what's the benefit? So the benefit to these types of solutions typically are when you are configuring these things as code, that sort of ensures that your configuration stays exactly the same as your code. And should it drift outside of that code, the code will set it back. That is a extremely 101 high level version of what this would what this should accomplish for these workloads. So, hope that helps, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
So Amir just had some follow up on his question for Autopilot and naming the devices. So first of all, thank you for the input. And the user logs in at the beginning of the Autopilot process. Currently, don't utilize a task sequence and aim to prevent users from entering their information twice. If we rename the device after the Autopilot process, TeamViewer host is installed and registered to their tenant during Autopilot, and that will use the default device name. Technicians will be unable to identify the device without additional steps to track it down and rename it accordingly.
Well, for that specific scenario, it probably will make more sense to ask for the username earlier. and use that to set the device name before enrolling, meaning before this application or the TeamViewer app is installed, because then the device would have the right name from the beginning. So a bit of customization, but it's totally doable. The trick is to making it secure. So you have to leverage some sort of web service in the backend to do the Intune talk or the MS Graph calls. So Azure function or a traditional web service or a paid solution. There are plenty of web services out there that you can leverage. Amazon has them, Zapier has them, Azure has them. Our company has them.
All right. In a Dell-only environment, what are your thoughts on using Dell Command update application for keeping drivers and BIOS updated? Do you prefer a different service or tool to that? So in my experience, even in Dell-only environments, I've still gravitated towards the Modern Driver Management solution we were just talking about. Not that that's right or wrong. That's just what I've gravitated towards. It's what I know. It's in a very useful, easy to manage tool, as we were just discussing. But I don't know if you have any thoughts there, Johan.
No, I agree as well. I've been working with a few customers that have been using these tools, and we just switched them over to use what I call a standard solution, but in this case from the community. But I mean, if you are using it today and it works for you, you know it inside out, I don't see any harm using it. I see more harm not using anything at all, because there are so many companies out there today that don't have reasonably well patching mechanism for drivers and BIOS. And guess what? There are security risks with those as well. There are CVEs attached to BIOSes, there are CVEs attached to drivers, and Dell is actually one of the few good vendors that publishes that information in their catalogs. It's kind of easy to track, like, okay, this BIOS release actually have a CVE to it. You better upgrade like yesterday. So Microsoft is starting to collect this information also as part of the Defender for Endpoint license. So if you have that one, they will warn you if you have devices that are at risk from a BIOS level, which is brilliant. I just wish that would make its ways over to Intune. So when you have, because you have driver and BIOS management in Intune, but there is no connection to whether there is security risk with them or not. Now you have to open up the wallet big time and get security and Defender for Endpoint. Opportunity for growth. Isn't that what the word?
That's right. This is phrase of the day, I think. Message of the day.
But it's just, it drives me nuts. If you let me rant just a little bit, and I'll be out of your hair here. But how hard can it be?
Did you want to share something?
Yes, I was about to. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
So if I go to Intune here and check my driver updates, which, by the way, is not just driver updates. It should say driver and BIOS updates or firmware updates, because there are firmware updates in here as well. It would be nice if it could tell me it's for this model. Now, I happen to know it because I create my policies per model, but it would still be nice if it could say model. And it could also say, okay, this one has a risk. Mm-hmm. How hard can it be to add that in? Apparently very hard.
Apparently. Because you're right. I mean, the reporting on the other side of it is quite good. And that would be a huge value add right here.
Guess it's a different department. I don't know.
Yeah, we can keep dreaming and hoping.
Well, I'll keep nagging.
There we go. Actually trying to do something about it and being proactive. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. So I see a comment here from Brett, Brent. I'm sorry, not Brett. I'm not sure if I'm missing a question here or not, but for CMG server authentication certificate, I think I understand the naming convention needed there and how it relates to what the service/deployment name is or will be.
Well, I can show. I have a CMG here. And that my console decided to take a nosedive. Let me close this console and reopen it. So if you do properties on this one. So your certificate will be matching this one here. The server certificate for the CMD will be matching the name of the resource. You still need to set up aliases for it in both internal and external DNSs, but the service name should match what you have in your cert. I guess wildcards are supportive. I just haven't seen anyone use it for CMG. Always been the cheaper options. They're like $200 a year, a server SSL cert.
Mm-hmm. Yep, wildcards do work. I've seen it.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, there's a follow-up here from Brent that some of his other messages didn't seem to come through. So sounds like we've had that a couple times today. But yeah, Brent, if you had, like Matt mentioned earlier, if there happened to be any links or anything in there, those could have been filtered out. But otherwise, yeah, I apologize. I don't see the other messages in here.
I saw a similar question coming in, was from Matt on how to migrate from classic CMD to the new CMG. There is a convert option in the console. Problem is it doesn't work really well either. I tried it 4 times for different environments. It failed 3 out of those 4. So we had to add up, just set the new one and delete the old one. So now I have simply done that. That's the way I've been doing it. I was lucky enough that those clients were migrating off to 10 different infrastructures, so it was very easy to do. But if the convert doesn't work, well, delete the old one, hope for the best, and create a new one. Or place a support call.
Jorgen actually has a nice blog post on this.
On the conversion?
Yes, on the migration, which is basically recommending the same thing that you just said.
All right, so you have it up on your screen?
I do.
All right, then.
One of the things that I like to point out when we are talking about these as well, because it probably sticks in my mind because I was bit by it once, the resource providers that need to be enabled in Azure, verify that these are enabled and registered in your Azure subscription. Otherwise, you'll have a bad time when you deploy the new one as well.
Yeah, and worth noting those are different for the scale set versus the old classic one.
Yes, great point. And then the DNS names also change from the classic to the new one. So Jorgen's got that all detailed right here in this blog post. It's Nice and succinct, easy to follow.
All right. Brilliant.
Last I checked, that gentleman knows what he's talking about.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
All right. Alexander's asking over on YouTube, any tips or links on getting more familiarity with the Intune configuration policies?
I know training you can attend. I mean, there are tons of resources on device configurations. There are so many folks that are blogging about those. Dean LRB, who's usually joining us here on the office hours, he has done a few videos on it. Very straightforward to follow. Peter Klapvik has a good few posts on the topic. You can read this. It's not mine, but it's a lot of Intune in it. 800 glorious pages, written by Christian and Per Larsen, or Christian and Per Larsen.
Fantastic resource.
Yeah.
I'm be shocked if Adam and Steve don't have a video on that as well over on the Intune training YouTube channel.
I probably have 20.
Yeah, as you said, a tremendous amount of resources. And I mean, actually, even the Microsoft documentation for configuration profiles, good place to start as well. All right. Amir had a follow-up question on his autopilot and renaming device topic. If we pre-assign the device, how could we get the Azure device ID to look up its information from Graph API?
Well, if you pre-assign the device, you don't have to. If the device is already there, registered, at the time it hits the out-of-box experience, it will use whatever information that device has. If that device also has a user assigned at that point, it will even pre-populate the username for you. And it will have the right name at that point, or you're given the right name. Sounds like we should have a advanced autopilot session here on the Academy.
That sounds pretty reasonable.
See if I can twist Michael Niehaus' arm and join us for one.
That would be fun.
It would be fun. He hinted it would be a possibility, but I haven't got it confirmed, like, yes. But one can hope.
Yes, indeed. All right. Diego's got a question around drivers here. Regarding the drivers question, do you have any guidance for updating drivers from Intune and how to properly start configuring and testing it? Is it better to do manual or automatic? And could you please show how you set up the groups by model? This is great content.
Well, there are a few blog posts out there on this particular setup. It was Jürgen. No, it was Sassan that posted on Jürgen's blog.
Right there.
Yeah, that's the one. So this is a PowerShell script that sets up the structure in terms of groups and policies and whatnot. But if I can steal the screen, I can show what it looks like.
Of course.
So here we are going back to drivers. So each of these policies says profile, it's a policy. They haven't updated every UI part yet. Some says create new policies, some says create new profile, but anyhow, you can see it's assigned. And it's assigned to a group. My lovely Latitude 3120 group. And this is just a group with a filter or dynamic membership. So if I go to that group and take a look at the membership rules, it just looks for that model. Simple as that. If you really want to get fancy, you can go ahead and have a pilot and a production. The pilot one you just manually add in, and the production one you do dynamic like this. Problem right now is that you can only have 100 policies. So the more policies you have, the less flexible you can be, or the less number of models you can support. And then you have to start to group them together. And that is, well, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. In terms of automatic, no. I don't trust the vendors that much. We've already seen scenarios, and I won't mention any vendor at all, but Realtek publishing a driver that was not okay. And there were some folks that had it automatic, and network gone. How fun is it on a scale to try to fix a network driver remotely?
Minus 100.
I'm going to send a pigeon your way. I'm going to attach a floppy to it, and when you get it.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. We've got a couple of last questions here, and I wanted to mention something a minute after that. But a question about Modern Driver Management. The invoke apply driver package PowerShell script has a pre-cache parameter. Do you know how to tell clients to find and use the pre-cached content locally?
Yes. I did that for a customer recently. Wonder if I have that in my lab anywhere. I had to do a few changes because we found a little bit of a bug in the script. I wonder if this was the one. Yeah, this was the one. And then we had to put in another logic to do some cleanup. So that was a script I wrote to do cleanup afterwards. So no, it's definitely doable to use the pre-cache switch. It's just that it needed a little bit of love afterwards.
Right.
So then the drivers are there, and then the script that looks for them would have to look for that folder rather than trying to download them again. So in your sequence that will do the download, you have to put in logic that looks for a folder. If the stuff is there already, perfect, use it. If don't, then go ahead and download. And that functionality is not part of the default script. So you have to add some logic around it. But doable.
Good stuff. The one thing that I wanted to mention, we've had a lot of great questions around drivers and BIOS management today. I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you guys cover some of this stuff in the mini course back in August? You and Morris and Mike Terrell?
A little bit, yes. That recording should still be available. It was one of our mini courses, so we talked. Yeah, this one here. That one is available. Yeah, right, August.
Awesome. Figured that would be worth mentioning.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Dang, wow. Thank you. We got a great chunk of questions today.
Absolutely.
But we'll be back next week for more shiny questions. I'll see if I can get the screen back to normal. Thank you, everyone that joined today. Thank you, Andrew. And we see you all hopefully next week again. Bye for now.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great rest of your week.